visit by the country's leader since the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries in 1961. Yoon, along with First Lady Kim Gun-hee, is visiting at the invitation of King Willem Alexander, with a primary focus on enhancing bilateral cooperation in the semiconductor sector. On Tuesday, President Yoon and King Willem Alexander will tour the headquarters of ASML, a leading chip-making equipment manufacturer in Veldhoven, to discuss ways to strengthen bilateral semiconductor cooperation. Despite China's export halt of urea, the compound's prices and availability in the country remain stable. The nationwide average price for urea at pumps was approximately 1,602 won per liter, roughly equal to $1.22 as of last Thursday. This price falls within the normal range of 1,300 to 1,800 won. Additionally, a government survey indicated that 96.5% of gas stations across the country have urea available. To bolster supplies, the government has recently secured a contract to import about 10,000 tons of urea from a country other than China. In local news, Busan City announced its plans to enforce the 2023 Winter Comprehensive Plan for Livelihood Stability to enhance the social safety net during winter, ensuring citizens experience a warm and safe season. This comprehensive plan focuses on 4 areas: welfare, safety, health, and living. It includes 34 policy tasks, such as identifying at-risk households, providing living stability support, responding to winter disasters, managing infections among the health vulnerable groups, and preventing cold-related diseases. In the welfare sector, the plan involves identifying households at risk of solitary death and providing emergency welfare support, including livelihood and heating expenses. The most visited places by domestic tourists in Busan during the first half of this year were Samyeon, Haeundae Market, and Haeundae Beach. According to the 2023 first half Busan Tourism Industry Trend Analysis Report by the Busan Tourism Corporation, domestic tourist visits from January to June reached 72.66 million, a 10.6% increase compared to the same period last year. Tourists from South Gyeongsang Province were the most numerous at 29 million, followed by visitors from Gyeonggi, Seoul, and Ulsan. The Ministry of SMEs and Startups said today that during the 2023 Regional Specialized Development Special Zone Performance Sharing Meeting held at the Busan UN Peace Memorial Hall, that it has rewarded outstanding specialized districts driving regional development despite the risk of regional extinction. Among 181 specialized districts nationwide, the UN Peace Culture Special Zone in Busan Namgu received the President's Award. In international news, the Prime Minister of Qatar, Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani, has expressed concern that the ongoing Israeli bombardment of Gaza is reducing the chances for a new ceasefire. Speaking at the Doha Forum, he emphasized Qatar's commitment to pushing both sides towards a truce. Qatar was instrumental in negotiating a week-long halt in hostilities at the end of November, facilitating the release of hostages. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, however, stated on Sunday that the war is in full swing. He mentioned that dozens of Hamas terrorists had surrendered recently, viewing this as a significant blow to Hamas. Argentina's newly inaugurated far-right president Javier Milei has committed to implementing an economic shock treatment in his first speech after taking office. Milei, who achieved a surprise election victory in November, warned the Argentine public that the country's financial resources are depleted and outlined a plan for strict austerity measures. And now, taking a quick look at the weather, it's currently raining in Busan with the mercury readings 15 degrees Celsius. Rain is forecast to continue throughout the night. Tomorrow is forecast to be mostly cloudy with 30% chance of showers. And that wraps up for this hour's news. Thank you for joining us. You're listening to BEFM Busan 영어방송.
Your best choice. BEFM Busan 영어방송.
Coming up next is Steve Hatherly Reboot with Steve Hatherly. BEFM Busan 영어방송.
What you're about to hear is amazing. That's because you're locked in to Busan's #1 English radio station. Whether you're at home, at work, or driving in your car, you will be exposed to radio excellence. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show because it starts right now.
Learning is something that begins when we are young and continues, well, I mean, it never stops, right? It never stops until we leave this earth. But if we do a good job in school in our younger years, our teacher might give us a nice compliment or a compliment for our parents. Have you ever heard this before? Your child is a fast learner. But to be a fast learner, that implies that others don't learn as quickly. But is that true? Well, scientists put that to the test to find out the answer. It's Monday, December 11th, 2023. I'm Steve Hatherly. This is Steve Hatherly Reboot. Let's go. That was 17 by Julia Michaels, and reflecting the title accurately, singer and songwriter. The singer and songwriter has weaved together beautiful conversational pieces of one's inner monologues about love, relationships, hurt, hope, all into one heavy, pop-crafty lyric which is relatable to all of us. Julia reflects about wanting a relationship and wishing that things could be simple and easy when we are at the tender age of 17. Rain. The chilled-out pop tune with guitars and beats sets the mood while focusing on her storytelling. The tales of insecurity and despair, which are set against uplifting melodies, clever and witty arrangements are in there as well. And that song got us going today. I am live in the studio from Busan on this Monday afternoon. Welcome to the show, everyone. You're tuned in on BEFM 90.5 in Busan and 103.3 FM in the Gijang, Zhongguan, and Noksan areas, in Seoul on TBS EFM 101.3 and in Gwangju on GFN 98.7. I'm your host, Steve Hatherly. Thanks for being with me today. How you doing? Rainy Monday here in Busan. My socks are wet. My shoes are wet because I had to make the walk from the train to the studio this morning and this afternoon. But it's okay. The mood is kind of nice outside. It's not very cold. So when it's not so cold, the rain is okay. But if you are considering leaving the house this afternoon, bring your umbrella with you. But I'm sure a quick look out the window would tell you to do that. You don't need to hear it from me. How was your weekend? I hope you had a good one. We had a movie weekend in my house. We're moved in. We are not fully unpacked. When you move into a new house or a new space, how long does it take you to fully unpack? It's not immediately, right? It doesn't happen immediately. It takes some time. But we're nearly there. We have just one room left to do. So because of that, we're kind of taking our time, actually, just making sure everything is clean and fresh in the new space. And that allowed us to watch a bunch of movies over the weekend. We watched, have you seen it? The new Leonardo DiCaprio film? I guess it's not so new anymore because now it's on VOD on your computer or on your TV. I always have to look up I can never remember the name of this movie, and I just looked it up while that song is playing, and I've immediately forgotten. It's called Killers of the Flower Moon. Killers of the Flower Moon. Have you watched it yet? It's the Martin Scorsese directed film with Leonardo DiCaprio. Robert De Niro's in the movie. Jesse Plemons. I love Jesse Plemons. He was in the film. He's from Breaking Bad, right? You might know him from there. He looks like Matt Damon, but not really, a little bit. Lily Gladstone is amazing in this movie as well. She co-stars alongside Leo DiCaprio. And we watched it, and it's good. I mean, I'm on the Rotten Tomatoes site right now, and it gave it a 93% approval rating, which is what? That's amazing, right? And an audience score of 84%. But it's 3.5 hours long. It just feels like it doesn't have to be that long. Why do directors these days make movies that are 3.5 hours long? And my wife made a good point. She said, it feels like, you're watching a series, like a limited series, like episode 1, 2, and 3, or 1, 2, 3, and 4. I said, yeah, I guess if you look at it like that, then sure. But it's a really, really long film. But that said, the acting is amazing. With Leo DiCaprio, you know what you're going to get, right? You're getting a superstar actor, so he's really, really good. She's fantastic as well. I don't know who she is. I don't think I've ever seen her in any other film. Robert De Niro's really good in this movie. Jesse Plemons, sure, he's great in this film as well. But I just couldn't help but notice. It's always a bad sign when you kind of check, like, how much time is left in the movie. If you're at the theater, you can't do that. So what do? You check your watch, right? Or you check your phone to see how much time is left. And when you're at home, you'll press pause and then see how much is left in the film. That's never a good sign. But, all that being said, I would say give it a watch for sure. It's an interesting story. It's very well acted. It's very well directed, of course. It's just a little bit too long for my taste. Maybe you don't mind. Maybe you don't mind a super long movie, but for me, I guess it's my attention span. But that's all of us these days, isn't it? Our attention spans are really, really quite short these days. Anyway, give it a watch. I would say it's worth watching, that's for sure. All right, let's get into it. What's on the show today? Well, before that, go on over to YouTube. Quick note on YouTube here. Go to YouTube. Well, first of all, I have to say welcome back to my producer. Napidi is back in the studio today after a couple of days away from the show. He was under the weather last week, but he's feeling better now. You feeling better now, sir? Yeah, good. He's feeling better now. He's back to work. The cameras are back on. We didn't have our YouTube live stream was it Thursday, Friday? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? But it's back today. So go to youtube.com and search BEFM or 부산영어방송 in Korean. You can find our live stream there, and you can see that I need a haircut badly. I think this is the longest my hair maybe ever in my life. And people ask me, did you get a perm? I say, no, I didn't get a perm. This is just what happens. I'm like a little chia pet. You know what a chia pet is? That's like that little plant, and the plant pot is shaped like a lamb or a sheep, and then you pour water on it, and then slowly the hair comes, or the plant comes out, but it never goes down. The plant never goes down. Well, my hair never goes down either. It just keeps going out and up, and more out and more up. So if you turn on the cameras today, you'll notice that, I'm sure. Watch our live stream there. You can do that until the songs start to play. Once they start to play, they will fade out. And what we ask you to do then is open up your BEFM app, or you can listen to the music, of course, through FM radio. And when the songs conclude, then you can resume watching our live stream. The reason for that, music copyright issues, nothing that can be done about that at this point in time. But as I often say, as I always say, hopefully at some point in the future, that will change. All right, now we can get to what's on the show this afternoon. Coming up first, hot off the press, where you'll check out some of the newest, hottest tracks from the world of music. I've got some information about the song and some information about the artist as well. Then after that, around 2:30 or so, Casey will join me in the studio for today's Need to Know. And Casey brings some under-the-radar news stories from outside the mainstream media, but still are important to us. We'll find out about Casey's stories in about 20 minutes or so. He'll stay with me for what remains of the first hour. Then in hour number 2, we're going to talk about learning and education a little bit. And as our fun fact of the day, I found this story. This isn't a brand new news story. This is from August, but I thought this is really cool. KAIST, you know, the university here in Korea, KAIST, they appointed this year their youngest ever professor. I'll tell you who that is when we get to our fun fact of the day. A very, very young person, though, I'll tell you that. Probably around the same age as some of the students, as a matter of fact. That'll be our fun fact of the day. Then for me, myself, and I. This is what I was talking about in the opening of the show today. Have you ever heard that before? Or maybe you've used that yourself, about yourself, because this isn't really exclusive to children. That's just what the study was about. But scientists, they wanted to know about quick learners. They wanted to find out about the rates at which we learn, how quickly or how slowly some students learn or some students don't. And I'll talk about the results of what they found in hour number 2. But have you ever heard that? You know, when you were in school, oh, you're a fast learner. Or maybe you've used this when you go to the office and somebody says, oh, you know, can you figure out how to use this computer software? And you say, yep, I'm a fast learner. Or I'm a quick study. Same expression, same meaning. Well, you might be surprised to find out what the scientists found out during this study, and we'll talk about that through me, myself, and I today. After that, we'll move on to Perfect Playlist. It's a new week. It's a Monday. That means we'll have a new theme for Perfect Playlist, and we'll find out what that is when we get into hour number 2. And, of course, I will check your messages throughout the program as well. All right, so here's my question that I have for you today. Because we're talking about studying and learning and things like that, this is what I want to know. Tell me something that you learned recently or are learning now. Now, when we use the word learn, it kind of implies to you some sort of study or classroom thing or hobby thing like learning the guitar or learning yoga or something like that. The answer can be like that, but it doesn't have to be. It can be something very simple about your daily routine or about your friends or about your coworkers or your job or anything. For example, this morning, because I moved, I now come to work a different way, from a different direction. And I used to take the subway to work, but now I take the train. And you might think, well, the subway and the train are the same thing, right? No. Subway's underground. This is the above-ground train that goes all the way to Busan, as a matter of fact, if I go in the other direction. But I learned this morning that if I leave the morning show that I do, the Boombox, please listen to it, Monday to Friday, 9 to 10 a.m. here at BEFM at 90.5 Busan. If I leave the studio immediately and I run, then I can take the train to get home by around 10:30 in the morning. But if I miss that train, if I don't run, the next train is a half an hour later. And I learned that this morning. So you see my point, right? It can be any little thing that you learned. That's my question. 최근에 배웠거나 현재 배우고 있는 것은 무엇인가요? Text me, #9050. That will cost you 100 won on your cellular phone. Add us on Kakao Talk for free and send messages for free by searching BEFM or 부산영어방송 in Korean. Same search on your smartphone. You can download the app from any of the app stores. You can listen to our programs there and leave us a comment after logging in. All right, that's all the information you need for now. We'll have a break, and when we come back, we'll get into today's Hot Off the Press. Here's Hannah Diamond, Perfect Picture.
It's you.
That was Hannah Diamond with Perfect Picture, and I'm back, and it's time for today's Hot Off the Press, where from Monday to Friday, we bring you two of the newest, hottest tracks from the world of music. A lot of songs are released every week, and we choose a couple each and every day that we hope that you will enjoy. We'll start today with the new one from Diplo and Maren Morris called 42. The Grammy-winning artists Diplo and Maren Morris have shared their collaborative new track 42. The song was co-written by Ryan Tedder, who has worked with popular artists such as Beyonce, Adele, Ariana Grande, Justin Bieber. That list is very, very long. This new track 42 has an ethereal synth pop sound. It gradually builds exhilaration from the beginning sounding softer and eventually elevating into an up-tempo chorus. After that, we'll hear the new one from the Knox and Sophie Tucker. This one's called One on One. The Grammy-nominated duo Sophie Tucker have teamed up with the Knox on their collaborative new track, One on One. The 80s-inspired pop dance anthem features a compellingly memorable melody and a funky-filled periodic bass line that urges movement and dance. It urges movement. What does that mean? One on One is the third collaboration between Sophie Tucker and the Knox. They've worked together before. They joined forces on the infectious track Brazilian Soul and the massive single Best Friend, which has racked up an unbelievable 125 million streams. Here we go with our two tracks for Hot Off the Press. First, we'll hear Diplo and Maren Morris, 42, and then the song that encourages or urges movement, the Knox and Sophie Tucker, One on One.
Yeah, I'll be sipping on you.
Well, I stand corrected. That did urge movement. That was the Knox and Sophie Tucker, One by One, and before that, the new one from Diplo and Maren Morris, 42, our 2 tracks for Hot Off the Press today. Here's our question, my question for you this afternoon. Now, when I use the word learn, please don't think, I mean, you can answer that way, but you don't have to think about learning a new hobby or a new skill or something deep about life or something like that. This can be a very, very, very simple answer. The question is, what is something that you learned recently or are learning now? 최근에 배웠거나 현재 배우고 있는 것은 무엇인가요? I'll give you another example of mine. I learned recently that I could transfer the points from my credit card. You know how you collect these points on your credit card? I don't even know what they're called. It's probably a different name for each credit card, but you earn these points that you can use in various locations. Members of the expat community very, very rarely know how to use these points from Korean credit cards because it's like, 5% off at this place and 10% off, but we generally don't understand where or how to use those points, so they don't get used. That's a common thing. What I learned is that I could transfer all of those points that I never used. So I had 180,000 points. I had gold mines worth of points. I transferred them over to my cable. So I can use those points to watch movies on VOD. So, for example, I told you the new Leonardo DiCaprio film on VOD. When new movies come out, they cost what? Manwon? 10,000 won if you want to watch a new movie on VOD. Well, I can use those points to pay for films. I've been using those points. I haven't paid for a movie in months, and it's amazing. And all those points that I earn every month now go directly to there, and it's my movie fund. My credit card has now become my movie fund as well. I learned that recently. It can be simple like that as well. Once again, tell me something that you learned recently or are learning now. Text me, # 9050. That will cost you 101. Add us on Kakao Talk for free and send messages for free by searching BEFM or 부산영어방송 in Korean. Same search on your smartphone. You can download the app from any of the app stores. You can listen to our programs there and leave us a comment after logging in. Did you know about this, Casey? You can transfer the points over to your VOD and watch movies for free for maybe the rest of your life.
I'm going to tell my wife as soon as I get home.
Right? It's really awesome. That was the biggest discovery of the last 5 years for me. Yeah, it's good to find out useful information that can be applied practically to your life. Casey's here. It's time for Need to Know. How you doing, sir?
Good. I'm happy to be here on a Monday and not enjoying the weather per se.
Dry shoes today? Dry socks?
They're drying as we speak.
Yeah, exactly.
Pants slightly wet at the bottom.
This is where the ondol comes in quite handy, right?
Right. I wish we had that in our chairs.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Exactly. What is something that you learned recently, Casey, or maybe even learning these days?
It took me a while to think about it, but I just realized I learned how to do laundry properly.
Oh,
did you? Yeah.
What mistake were you making?
Everything. I never really read the tags.
Uh-huh.
And another thing I learned is that a lot of phones these days, you can, those tags on the laundry or on your clothes are so tiny half the time you can't read them anyway.
Yeah, so if you want to see it, you kind of have to take a picture of it
Exactly.
with your phone and then enlarge it. Yeah.
Yes, and then a lot of phones will translate it for you these days.
Oh.
So I found that out about my phone. I was like, I could translate, and it's spotty,
You could learn a new language through your T-shirts.
Basically, that's what I'm doing. I've learned hand wash, 손세탁. I've learned that because of my tags, but
now you just have to find a place where you can use that expression on a daily basis.
I know, this is the kind of stuff I share with my wife. I'm all excited about. She's like, "Yeah, duh. I've been knowing that for my whole life. Where you been?" And I'm like, "Yeah. Why did I not know how to do this?"
The washer is because it's got all those. It's got 15 settings on it. So how are you supposed to know which one? So I just put the clothes in and then just flip it to the time that I think is appropriate.
Right. And then what it does inside, who knows?
Who knows? Are you good at separating colors? And
Yes. I'm very good at that now. Now, this has been a learning process. Laundry has taken me way too long to kind of master.
Yeah, but see, I don't know how to. I mean, I know how to do that, but if you've got a bunch of white stuff and then some gray stuff, you got one red shirt.
Oh, I wouldn't do it. Don't do it. I've ruined it. You do it?
Yeah, I do it.
I'm scared because I've done it and it came out that way where it came out like, I got a pink shirt now.
I know, but it's almost like you got a new shirt.
It is. And you know what? Sometimes you can pull off the pink.
It's all about perspective.
That's true.
That's good to see you, Casey. It's time for Need to Know. You've got some under-the-radar stories from outside the mainstream media but are still important to us. Where do we start today?
Getting old. And I feel like there's been a couple of topics we've talked about lately where that kind of has been the theme, like whether it's like hair, or your eyesight. And I was thinking about it after I read this story. It's like, oh, do we actually age too quickly? Do you feel like we age quickly?
I don't. As human beings?
As human beings, yeah.
I feel like it's a pretty progressive kind of over a long period of time thing.
Right.
But that's kind of because I don't really have anything else to compare it to.
That's it, right? But I did, after I read this, I did think about this. I remember, I went to Sunday school when I was a kid, because my family is largely Catholic. And I remember, occasionally hearing about these, Bible stories about people living to 1,000 years old or something. I was like, what? Or, there's legends in many cultures where people lived for a really long time. And it turns out that might have been normal for us, except according to this article from Popular Mechanics again. I don't know.
That's your go-to science magazine.
It is. It's so bizarre. And they cover everything.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. So the title of this, the article from this was, a scientist says humans were meant to live so much longer, then the dinosaurs ruined it. So I was like, oh, I have to understand this.
Wait, so humans were meant to live longer than we naturally live, which is, let's just say, around 100 years old. We were meant to live longer than that, but dinosaurs ruined that for us.
Exactly. And the number I've seen kind of floating about this topic and this article and this kind of one of the researchers in general, I've seen the number put up there generally being 200 years old.
Oh, really?
So double.
You mean that's what we were supposed to live to?
I mean, again, this is all theory, but the theory behind it is kind of, if you think about it, it makes sense. And yeah, there's kind of a proposed number, 200. Does that sound good to you?
Well, it's not. That's a different topic for a different day, I guess, right? Living to be 200 years old.
Right.
But where's the connection between dinosaurs and our lifespan?
Okay, that's a very good question, and that's why I had to read this article, because I was like, what? All right, so basically you have to think back to prehistory. And our ancestors we're mammals, right? So we came from the mammals that were living at that time period, and they were basically dinosaur snacks. So according to this,
we were dinosaur food for the carnivores.
Exactly right. So there's a researcher from the University of Birmingham in the UK. His name is, I'm gonna do my best, João Pedro de Magalhães. He would probably disagree. But anyway, he's researches a lot about aging and longevity in general. And he says that, and he's not the only one who says this, by the way, reptiles, amphibians, and a lot of other animals have a much slower biological aging process than mammals do.
Okay.
And this results in some things that we can see today, even differences in between mammals and other animals.
Okay, so if we think about how we age versus perhaps how a turtle ages.
Sure, there you go.
Then our aging process is much faster.
Basically, right. So there's something called biological age and chronological age. I think we talked about this a while back, but basically the condition of your cells and how quickly they deteriorate would be your biological age, but your chronological age would just go by numbers, right?
Yes, right.
Okay. So yeah, basically mammals have a poor biological age, and we can see that in some concrete ways because we lack the ability to regenerate, for example. And, famously, I think a lot of lizards, they might lose their tail and then grow it back, right? We don't need that, obviously. We don't have tails. But this also results in something like sunburns. So all kinds of animals get sunburns from the UV light from the sun, right? It's very strong. But non-mammal animals can very easily restore that skin that has been burned, where we have a big problem with that.
So reptiles, for example, they don't have to worry about their skin as much as we do.
They love the sun. They'll hang out in the sun all day long.
Right.
Where if I do that,
try to get a lizard off the beach.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, right.
But if I do that, I look like a lizard at the end of the day.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm still not seeing the connection between this and dinosaurs.
Okay, so this takes a little more explanation. So basically, dinosaurs were big, scary animals, and they lived over 100 million years, right? So there's 100 million years of this going on where dinosaurs were the top of the food chain, and mammals were typically small, lived at nighttime, because that was the safest time to be alive. Mm-hmm. And their lives were very short-lived because odds were they're going to get eaten by a dinosaur.
Okay.
So what that forced mammals to do was to adapt. They adapted the reproduction as the way to survive. So reproduce as quickly as possible and as many as possible, and odds are your species will live throughout the dinosaur feeding period.
So then, referencing our biological age, it forced us scientifically to grow up a lot faster.
Reproduce became like the main way to survive.
So therefore, human beings now are physically capable of reproduction at what, like 13, 14 years old or something like that?
Right.
I don't know the numbers
Which used to be normal, by the way. Right. Typically not now, but we can, technically.
But comparing that to what we would have naturally done if we weren't at, not the bottom of the food chain, but if we were not, apex predators at that time, then it forced us to kind of get to a point in our lives faster so that we could maybe even protect ourselves or continue on with our own species. I guess that was the point.
That's the point, right? Because it was a numbers game, because a lot of mammals were going to be eaten. So in order to have too many that we don't get all eaten, we had to reproduce as much as possible and as quickly as possible. So what this kind of did, according to the professor, he calls this a longevity bottleneck hypothesis. So you can search that if you like. But so basically what this means is this evolutionary pressure on mammals just focusing on reproduction led to some other genes and abilities being kind of turned off or just discarded. And one of those being slowly aging, the ability to regenerate, the ability to heal. All of these things are just kind of left by the wayside because they weren't important to us.
So if there were no dinosaurs or anything around to eat us during the dinosaur times, then do they know, for example, would we have still looked like children at maybe 25 years old or 30 years old?
Good question. Because
everything, sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Going back to that number 200, right?
Sure.
So now if we use 100 as an example of we live to be 100 years old these days, then everything would be doubled, right? So if we look like we do at 10 years old now, without dinosaurs, would we have been 20 years old and still look the same?
It's a good question, and I think it's conjecture at this point because this is still a hypothesis. It's a hypothesis that makes a lot of sense to me.
It does make sense, yeah.
But I think, it's complete conjecture, like would have happened to us had they not been dinosaurs eating us all. But that's a fair guess. Like if we could have lived double, would we have aged much more slowly? I'm thinking that's a fair guess.
Is this true for other mammals as well? Because we were not the only food for dinosaurs.
That's right. So all the mammals that we know today, including elephants and whales, which also live what we consider to be a long time, we all live under this original evolutionary pressure, as they call it, that the dinosaurs kind of forced on us. So what we all have is like a cap. We all have a cap on our age, and we have lost this ability that we might previously have had to regenerate, rebuild cells. We just kind of lose that quickly. And that's another reason that this is really interesting point from this professor. Cancer is much more frequent in mammals than other animal species. So other animal species might have this innate or natural ability to fight cancer that we kind of jettisoned because we were worried about reproducing.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
So is there any sort of practical takeaway? I mean, I guess not because it's just so theoretical, right?
Actually, that's a very good point. Is there any practical takeaway? Yes, the ability to fight cancer. So what this doctor is, a lot of his research, and he's not the only one, by the way, but a lot of what his research is based on looking at mammals, looking at other animals, comparing DNA sequencing, looking for these kind of links where They kind of are narrowing down what to look for, like enzymes, for example, enzyme production that might lead to cell repair. So if he can kind of pinpoint what certain animals, like he mentioned a bullhead whale, I think was the term, blowhead whale perhaps, that has not figured out by thinking, but over evolving, it's kind of figured out how to live a long time in a very healthy way compared to humans, where we get cancer a lot.
So this is going to take generations and generations and generations and generations of human beings to kind of reverse this process, right? Because
maybe not.
Well, that was going to be another question that I had. We don't live with dinosaurs anymore.
Sure.
So evolutionarily speaking, we don't have that threat. And therefore, I guess, I don't know the scientific terms, but we will know, I guess, evolutionarily speaking, that we don't have that. That threat is not posed to us anymore. So does that mean that we can reverse the process where we earlier sped up the biological timeline? Can we now slow it down because we don't have to live with that threat anymore?
I think the approach to it is kind of looking at animals that have succeeded, even if they came from the same timeline or biological line that we did. So like mammals that have evolved in a different direction. He mentioned like naked mole rats is another example. So there's like a variety of species that have managed to adapt in certain ways and are able to live healthy and long lives. That's another key that he's looking for. Like if we could get rid of cancer, if we could treat aging, even he says, like a disease and kind of treat it. So can we find these things that are in DNA that we can switch back on through medicine or through DNA therapy, things like that? This might be something we could achieve in actually our lifetime, which
Interesting.
people have been looking for a long time, the fountain of youth, right?
It is a theory, but still, it just seems like a pretty solid theory.
Yeah.
Something to build on. All right, sorry, we spent a lot of time on that one. Let's move straight on. We'll skip our song break today. Let's move straight on to your second story today.
All right, so I thought about this, and I was like, man, you know, dinosaurs are a scary proposition, but what's the only thing more frightening to mammals than dinosaurs? In-laws. For a lot of people, in-laws are the big threat these days in our modern lives. And I don't know if you had this experience. I personally don't, but I do know there are a lot of people who are married or have been in a relationship with somebody, and it's like the in-laws are what they fear more than anything else.
I mean, that's a universal thing. That,
Right?
I think, transcends culture.
And it's weird. And why should it be that way? Why is it like we're so afraid of interacting with our significant others' parents?
Protective parents, I suppose.
I think that's it. And I think a lot of times when parents are being protective, they're trying to balance like being offensive or being too personal with actually concerns that they have.
Sure.
So a lot of people get bummed out by what the in-laws ask. And is it okay if I ask about your experience with this?
Yeah, I mean, I've had really no issues at all.
Okay, me
I'm
neither.
very, really appreciative about that. I've heard some various stories from various people that I guess I won't share, but yeah, we all know. We all
Okay.
know it can be tough, right?
Yeah, so this is no surprise. And it could be anything from asking about your weight, your current weight,
Yep.
or like, why are you not doing this that they expect you to do, or just kind of like personal questions. So I saw this article which says the number one way to respond when your in-laws are rude to you, according to a Harvard-trained etiquette expert.
Oh, how to respond to your in-laws if they are rude to you,
Right.
according to a Harvard-trained etiquette expert. All right, so what does this etiquette expert have to say?
Okay, so I'll give you a little background on the person so you can look her up if you're interested for more. Her name is Sarah Jane Ho, and she is a Harvard-trained etiquette expert, and I was like, well, that's the first time I've heard that expression. But she's also the founder of a finishing school institute. She's the host of a show called Mind Your Manners. She's got a book coming out called Mind Your Manners. So it's, okay, she's got credentials.
Yeah,
okay.
right, yeah.
So, and this was something I don't have this problem with my in-laws perhaps, but, anybody who could kind of teach me manners, I feel like maybe I should pay attention. I feel like I'm lacking in the manner area. So one thing that I hate personally is conflict. So even if I'm getting insulted, I kind of do anything to avoid having further conflict. So I just kind of like smile and, yeah, whatever. But some people can't take that. And I know some people personally, if you insult them, they're going to let you know about it really quickly. And I could see that turning ugly. So Ho says basically, no matter how rude your spouse's parents are, it's not your job to reprimand them. It's actually your partner's job. And I was like, oh, I never considered that.
Don't say anything.
Right. It's not your job.
Yeah. So for example, in your scenario, if
Yeah.
your mother-in-law or father-in-law were
Right.
rude to you,
Right.
then it's not your place to say something back to them?
Fair question. Place or job? I took it to mean like it's not your concern. They're out of line. Their bad behavior. Don't put that responsibility on yourself to do it. That's your spouse's or your partner's responsibility to do that for you.
It's very important that your spouse, not your spouse, but
Right.
any spouse, be aware of that if you're going to go down this road.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So I thought about that. Like, well, what if your partner is not, because your partner was raised by these people.
Yeah, right.
What if they're not aware?
Then they're suddenly, well, even if they are aware, they're still stuck in the middle, right? That's a tricky spot to be.
Yeah. So I think what you do is you point to this article and you point to the Harvard credentials,
Right.
and you say, listen, this person says it's not my job, it's your job.
Yeah.
And I think you have to have that conversation with your partner at some point.
Just keep that article on your home screen.
Exactly. No, look, she said it.
For immediate referencing.
Exactly.
If needed. Okay, anything else worth learning from this expert?
Yeah, so I thought, like, am I doing the wrong thing by just kind of smiling and then just like laughing it off? And apparently not. That's her advice. She says, like, in the moment when you're getting insulted, when you're getting a question that just feels weird, be agreeable. And I was like, well, what does that mean? So she says, even if something is very direct, just agree and play along, be very smiley. And I was like, oh, that's what I do. So that's good? Not always. Perhaps maybe they say something that doesn't deserve a smile. Instead, be silent. Don't say anything. I love this idea.
Just don't say anything at all.
Because that sends a signal that whatever somebody said to you is highly inappropriate and you should let them stew in it. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And now that will take some willpower on your own part to just like let a comment fall flat and not acknowledge it. But she says that's great because the greatest power is showing the other person that they don't have any power over you.
Okay.
So they can't even make you smile with that. I thought that was really cool.
Just be silent.
Can you imagine?
That's easier said than done, though,
I know.
right?
I know.
When you're getting insults. Although, I think, if someone's being rude to you, like a stranger or something, it's harder, perhaps, than if someone is an in-law. Well, actually, you know what? Maybe
It depends,
not, because the longer the relationship goes, then, it's like it's like plaque on a tooth. It just builds up and builds up and builds up, and it gets harder and harder and harder to smile and say nothing at all, perhaps.
Sure. So let this article kind of be a good reminder that, like, you have rights as a person. If you feel like you're being insulted, let them say what they're going to say, and then let them sit there and think about it in awkward silence with everybody. But, if you feel that's too much, you can also do the smile and kind of, and then pay no mind. But basically the idea is, like, don't put the pressure on yourself to feel responsible for somebody else's misbehavior.
I'm practicing this. Is it working?
It's good. That was good. I had a moment. I was like, oh my gosh. I thought about what I said.
Yeah.
I was reflecting.
Well, now
I was like,
you go home and you think about that, Casey, and you come back here next Monday and we'll talk about it then.
I'm really questioning my choices right now.
Have a great week, friend.
Yeah, man, that works good.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
See you, Casey.
All right.
Stay with us for hour number 2. Dove Cameron will finish the first. Sand.
BEFM 부산 영어방송.
혹시 지금 운전 중이신가요? 어린이 교통사고 피해자 수는 지난 3년 평균 약 9만 명. 특히 어린이 보호구역 안전 기준이 강화된 이후에도 어린이 보호구역 내 사고는 지속적으로 발생하고 있습니다. 스쿨존에서는 반드시 시속 30km 이하 서행, 스쿨존 내 불법 주정차 금지, 차량 출발 전 앞뒤 좌우 살피는 습관으로 어린이가 안전한 도시를 만듭니다. 참, 운전 중 휴대전화 사용은 모두에게 위험합니다. 우리 모두를 위한 교통안전, 나부터 실천하면 모두가 안전해집니다. 어린이가 안전하게 뛰어놀 수 있는 부산. 아이 키우기 좋은 도시는 우리 모두의 미래이자 희망입니다. 이 캠페인은 어린이가 안전한 부산을 만드는 은행, B&K 부산은행과 함께합니다.
괜찮아 괜찮아 조금 불편해도 환경을 위해 너무 괜찮아 일회용 컵 대신 머그컵 비닐봉지 대신 에코백 물티슈 대신 손수건 우리의 실천 하나하나 모여 세상을 바꿔요 깨끗한 세상 플라스틱 제로 일회용품 제로 함께해서 참 좋은 우리의 시민
이 캠페인은 부산환경공단이 함께합니다.
안녕하세요. 영화배우 김민재입니다. 마약 시작하면 끝입니다.
너도 시작해볼래? 정말 끝내준대.
청춘 끝.
집중이 잘 안 돼? 이거 하나면 끝나.
미래 끝.
다이어트해도 정말 끝내준대.
건강 끝.
걱정할 필요 없어. 뒤끝 전혀 없어.
젊음 끝.
끝난다 끝나. 이제 우리 끝까지 가볼까?
인생 끝. 마약 당신은 이미 그 끝을 알고 있습니다. 마약 시작이 인생 끝입니다. 공익광고협의회.
The time is now 3 o'clock.
You're listening to Steve Hatherly Reboot on BEFM 90.5. I wonder if I didn't tell you who was the singer of that song. I wonder if I gave you 10 guesses if you would be able to figure it out. I don't think I would know if you didn't know the song, obviously. That was Psychedelic Switch by Carly Rae Jepsen. I don't know why that was surprising to me. That was the first time I've heard that song from Carly Rae Jepsen, and I think it's just because I'm so used to Call Me Maybe from Carly Rae Jepsen that it's hard to hear any other style. But that was kind of like a club banger, wasn't it? It's about the freedom that comes with the feeling of self-worth, apparently. She said, I think the main messaging for me is when you really feel loved properly, in the right, honest way, then you start to feel beautiful and you start to accept yourself. Interesting. I like that concept. Jepsen's career path is an intriguing road to follow and one that can bend with perspective. Growing up, she had a passion for musical theater, but after graduating from the Canadian College of Performing Arts, music took over for her. She was a gigging musician around Vancouver, and she worked different service jobs to support her ambitions until her high school drama teacher convinced her to audition for Canadian Idol in 2007. Did you know we had one of those? I'm asking our Canadian listeners, did you know we had a Canadian Idol? You know American Idol, right? Well, it's the same thing, Canadian Idol. I think I knew we had it, but I don't think I've ever seen one episode of it. Anyway, Carly Rae Jepsen in 2007, she finished in third place, and then her breakthrough came with the 2011 single, Call Me Maybe, which we all know. Right? We all know that song. Isn't that interesting, though? You know, in 2007, she was on Canadian Idol and she finished in third place, but then she didn't really break out until 4 years later with Call Me Maybe. You know, if you think about American Idol winners or American Idol contestants who did really, really well, like Kelly Clarkson, for example, she broke out almost immediately. But maybe that's the difference between Canadian Idol and American Idol. The American Idol, oh no, that's just for the winners, right? I was thinking the American Idol, whoever wins, their single is kind of given to them, right? They just sing it. And that kind of puts them on the pop charts immediately. But that's not necessarily true, I guess, for those who finish second or third or fourth or fifth, and Carly Rae Jepsen finished third. Anyway, it didn't matter for her. She went on and is still having a really successful career. That one got us into hour number 2 of Steve Hatherly Reboot. Thank you very much for staying with us. You're tuned in on BEFM 90.5 in Busan, 103.3 FM in the Gijang, Jongguan, and Noksan areas. In Seoul, you're listening on TBS EFM 101.3 and in Gwangju on GFN 98.7. Again, thank you very much for sticking with us for hour number 2. For our fun fact of the day today, it's going to be perhaps a little bit shorter in terms of the amount of time it takes me to deliver the story to you. But I thought this was kind of cool. KAIST, the university here in Korea, the school here in Korea, has appointed, and this isn't a brand new story, by the way. This didn't just happen, like last week. But it did happen this year. They appointed their youngest ever professor. It's pretty cool, I think, right? This person, I'll tell you the story when we get there, really, really quite young. And I said in the first hour, probably around a similar age to some of the students. So I'll share that story with you when we get to our fun fact of the day. And this is all related to kind of education and learning in the second hour this afternoon. Because for me, myself, and I, we're going to talk about a study that a group of scientists conducted. They wanted to find out about quick learners. They wanted to know if some students learn faster than other students. Now, this was conducted on students, but they could just as easily have conducted this study on adults as well. It's not just about young people. It's about human beings in general. Do some people learn faster than other people, or do they not? That's what they wanted to find out when they kicked off this study. And I'll tell you what they did find out in terms of that question. Really interesting story, actually. That's our topic for me, myself, and I. Then we'll move on to Perfect Playlist. We've got a new theme for this week. It's Monday, so we'll kick off a new theme for Perfect Playlist. We have the best songs for the best situations, or for every situation. And, of course, I'll check your messages throughout the second hour of the show as well. Question of the day today. This is what I want to know. Tell me something that you've learned recently or that you're learning right now. When we talk about learning, we often think about classrooms and math and science and languages and things like that, but it definitely does not have to be like that at all. I talked about the train. I'm taking a new train to get to work this morning, or every day now. Is that an exciting thing for you when you change your commute? I get impressed. Not impressed is the wrong word. I get excited about things that maybe shouldn't really make a difference to me at all, because I like that refreshing feeling. And even a commute to work, a change in your commute can be a refreshing thing. So I'm taking a new train these days, so, you get to see a new platform, you get to see the design and the interior of the train, then you check out the passengers, like, oh, who are they and where are they going? And I check out, like, the general age group of the passengers during the different times of day that I take the train. I pay attention to all of this kind of stuff. A lot of people, when they take the bus or the train or public transportation, they do it mindlessly. I do not. I'm paying attention to my surroundings. So learning that train schedule was one thing for me. And here's another thing connected to that same topic. I'm trying to figure out, I consider it to be like a puzzle. So from the radio studios to the train station, there are multiple routes that I can take. I can immediately turn left out of the studio and then cross the street and then walk all the way straight down to the station. That's one possible way. Or I can go straight and turn left, and then turn right, and then turn left, and then turn right, and then turn left. And I can zigzag my way to there. Or I can walk straight all the way down and then turn left. So these are my possibilities. What I'm trying to figure out is the most efficient route, time-wise, to make it from the train station to the studio, and conversely, from the studio to the train station. My mission is to figure out a way where I can accurately get to the green walking lights on the sidewalks. This is my new mission in life, and I've failed so far. I'm still trying to plot out my course and plot out my walking speed. I'm weird, aren't I? But these are the types of things that kind of keep me entertained as I'm working my way through the city on a daily basis. So that's one thing that I'm learning right now, is I'm trying to figure out the most efficient way to get to and from the stations. That is what I'm talking about today. It doesn't have to be language or math or science. It can be as simple as that. 최근에 배웠거나 현재 배우고 있는 것은 무엇인가요? Text me your answers, pound or sharp 9050. That will cost you 100 won for texting in. Add us on Kakao Talk for free and send messages for free by searching BEFM or Busan영어방송 in Korean. Same search on your smartphone. You can download the app from any of the app stores. You can listen to our programs there and leave us a comment after logging in. All right, let's get to our expression for today. This is from King the Land. And in this scene, what's going on in this scene? Two characters are talking. And when one character is talking to the other character, like, one character is saying, I'm not sure about this decision. Should I choose A or B or C? Maybe I should choose C. No. I should choose A. No, that's not right. I should choose B. So they're thinking too much, right? And because of that, the other character says this.
고민할 필요 없어. 하지 마.
고민할 필요 없어. 하지 마. Okay, so let's go through this and break it down and see what we can learn. The very end of that, let's start there. 하지 마. 하지 마 means don't do that. You'll hear this a lot in Korean, in everyday life. So there's a good thing to learn. If you're not familiar with that expression, 하지 마, 하지 마세요, don't do that, please. But we don't need that for today. So let's just scratch that off of there. Okay, let's go back to the start. 고민, we'll stop. 고민. What is 고민? 고민 or 고민하다 means, well, there's many English words that you can use to describe 고민. To worry, or to be concerned, or to overthink, or to think about too much, or to overanalyze. All of these things together mean 고민. So, depending on the context of the situation, it can mean something different. So, for example, if it's a thing to worry about, well, you can use this expression. But if it's nothing to worry about, you can also use this expression. And I'll clarify that in just a moment. All right, so 고민할 필요 없어. 필요하다 means to need something. So, 필요 없어 means you don't need that thing. So, 고민할 필요 없어, meaning no need to think about that too much. No need to be worried about that. No need to be concerned about that. No need to overthink that. All right, so let's give some examples after we check out the translation. 고민할 필요 없어, translated on the screen, was this. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Fun expression, right? No-brainer. What does that mean? It's kind of a fun little weird English expression because you see the words, right? No brain. That's a Korean rock band, isn't it, as well? No brain. So it's confusing. No brain, no brain. So this means like you're stupid or something like that? No. A no-brainer is a decision that you don't have to think about. I'll give you an easy example. If you ask me, Steve, should I go to Canada for my vacation, or should I go to the Philippines? I only have time for 4 days. My answer would be, well, that's a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. Go to the Philippines. You only have 4 days. So a no-brainer is a decision that you don't really need to think about very much. In Korean, you can say, 고민할 필요 없어. 필리핀 가세요. See what I mean? Now, that's a situation where you don't have to worry, meaning don't overthink it. Here's another example. Have you ever gone to a restaurant with a person and they look at the menu for 20 minutes and they're trying to decide chicken or pizza or pasta? Pasta? No, I think I want chicken. Oh, but that pizza looks... 고민하지 마. 고민하지 마 means don't overthink it. 선택해. Just choose. So again, that's a situation where you are, it's not really a worry, right? But let me give you an example of a worry situation. Let's say your coworker made a mistake on a report and the boss is a little upset. And so your coworker is crying in the bathroom. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I made that huge mistake. You can say to them, 고민하지 마세요. Don't be too concerned. Don't worry too much about it. So in that case, it is something to worry about, right? So you can say this to your friend like, oh, don't worry about that too much. Don't be too concerned about it. So as you can see, sometimes it's for a worry situation. Sometimes it's for a situation where you don't have to be worried, like a restaurant decision about what to eat. All right, so there you go. Good expressions, right? 고민할 필요 없어. In English, the translation was, it's a no-brainer. Let's hear it in Korean one more time.
고민할 필요 없어. 하지 마.
고민할 필요 없어. 하지 마. That's the Hotel Air you were listening to there. All right, good expressions in English and in Korean today. Hopefully that helps out your language skills, depending on which one you are studying. If not both, who knows? Maybe you're a student of English and Korean these days. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll check out our fun fact of the day. Here's Conan Gray, Never Ending Song. That was Conan Gray, Never Ending Song, and now it's time for our fun fact of the day. And I knew that we were going to be talking about education and learning and things in the second hour of the program today. So as I was looking for my fun fact last night, I was searching for, the youngest students to graduate from university, and I came across this American boy from Hawaii who graduated college at 10 years old or entered college at 10 years old or something like that. I thought, yeah, that's okay, but nobody really knows who that is here in Korea, and probably nobody cares. So I kept looking, and I came across this story from the Jungang Daily, which is a local media outlet here in Korea. And the headline read, KAIST appoints its youngest ever professor. This story is recent. This is from September 23rd of this year. So let's go ahead and find out who that is. Well, Han Soo-jin is the name of the genius who has been named an engineering professor at the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, otherwise known as KAIST here in the country, becoming the university's youngest ever professor. Born in 1999, the 24-year-old was appointed as an assistant professor at the Department of Electrical and Electronics Engineering at KAIST College of Engineering on August 28th, according to the university. Han became the Tech and Science University's youngest professor ever, breaking the previous record that was set by Chae Seo-hyun, who had been appointed as a professor at KAIST Mathematical Science Department at the age of 26 back in 2009. Goodness me, there's some young professors at this school. Chae, though, is no longer a faculty member at KAIST. Going back to Han Soo-jin, Ms. Han entered the University of California, Berkeley in 2014 after she received the qualification for high school graduation in Korea and earned her bachelor's degree in 2016. Han enrolled in the master's and doctoral program at the California Institute of Technology, Caltech, in 2017 and received her doctoral degree in January of this year. Wow, a doctoral degree at the age of 24. By the age of 19, the professor published her paper as a lead author in a Science Citation Index-ranked journal. Goodness, how impressive is this young person? Before joining KAIST as an assistant professor, Han was a postdoctoral scholar at Caltech as well. Pretty impressive. Han Soo-jin, the youngest ever professor at KAIST, the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology. And if you're not familiar with that school, it's a science and tech school, and here in Korea, that's where that's where the super smart students go in terms of science and technology. There are other top schools here in Korea, the Sky schools, right? But KAIST, that's a building or buildings that house or are home to a lot of super smart people. 24-year-old professor at the school. I wonder how the other students at the school feel about that, because their age, the students at KAIST would be around, 19, 20, 21, 22, something around there. So your professor is basically the same age as you. Still, though, I think Han Soo-jin is probably a very popular professor. Everybody probably wants to sign up for the classes. Pretty amazing story, huh? That is my fun fact of the day. And I love the fact that that just happened a couple of months ago as well. That's my fun fact of the day. We'll have a break, and when we come back, a group of scientists wanted to study quick learners to learn what they could learn. And I'll tell you their results after this. Dua Lipa, Houdini.
Okay.
That was Dua Lipa's smash hit, Houdini, and now it's time for Me, Myself, and I. And I thought this was kind of an interesting story today. This is a study that was conducted where scientists were trying to figure out if some students learned faster than other students. And I think it's true that some people, some kids, well, I guess we'll talk about kids here because the study focused on children. But again, this didn't have to be about children. It could have been about any age group, I think. But some kids appear to learn faster than others. And a few years ago, a group of scientists at Carnegie Mellon University decided to study these rapid learners to see what they are doing differently and if their strategies could help the rest of us. But as the scientists began their study, they stumbled on a fundamental problem. They couldn't find fast learners. After analyzing the learning rates of 7,000 children and adults using instructional software or playing educational games, the researchers could find no evidence that some students were progressing faster than others. All needed practice to learn something new, and they learned about the same amount from each practice attempt. On average, it was taking both high and low achievers about 7 to 8 practice exercises to learn a new concept, a rather tiny increment of learning that the researchers called a knowledge component. So I guess after practice session 1 or 2, you get one knowledge component, meaning you know a little more. A little more practice, you get another knowledge component, meaning you learn a little bit more. Students are starting in different places and ending in different places, said Ken Codinger, a cognitive psychologist and director of Carnegie Mellon's Learn Lab, where the research was conducted. He said, though, they're making progress at the same rates. Codinger and his team's data analysts were published in the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, a peer-reviewed journal of the National Academy of Sciences, in March of this year. If you want to look that up, that's where you can go to find it. The study offers the hope that, quote, anyone can learn anything they want if they get a well-designed practice exercise and put some effort into it as well. Raw talent, they said, like having a knack for math or a gift for language, it isn't required. But as the scientists confirmed, their numerical results across 27 different data sets, they began to understand that we commonly misinterpret prior knowledge for learning. Some kids already know a lot about a subject before a teacher begins a lesson. They may have already had exposure to fractions, for example. If we talk about math class, for example, they may have had exposure to fractions by making pancakes at home using measuring cups. The fact that they mastered a fractions unit or component faster than their peers, well, that doesn't mean they learned faster. It just means they had a different starting point. And they talked about this in the article. Children start at different spots, but it doesn't make them learn any faster than anyone else. Interesting, right? In the Learn Lab data sets, students typically used software after some initial construction in their classrooms, such as a lesson by a teacher or a college reading assignment. The software guided students through practice problems and exercises. Initially, students in the same classrooms had wildly different accuracy rates on the same concepts. For example, the top quarter of students were getting 75% of the questions correct, while the bottom quarter of students, they were getting only 55% correct. That's a huge 20 percentage point difference in the starting lines. But as students progressed through the computerized practice work, there was barely even 1 percentage point difference in learning rates. The fastest quarter of students improved their accuracy on each concept or knowledge component by about 2.6 percentage points after each practice attempt, and the slowest quarter of students improved by about 1.7 percentage points. That's a marginal difference, isn't it? 2.6 versus 1.7. It took 7 to 8 attempts for nearly all students to go from 65% accuracy, the average starting place, to 80% accuracy, which is what the researchers defined as mastery. The scientists involved in this study were just as surprised as maybe you and I were by this result. Students have different starting spots. Think about when kids go to school. They have some exposure to some topics. They've learned some things. So when they're introduced to the topic in school, it might come a little bit easier to them. But it doesn't mean that they learn faster than the other students in the classroom. This is really, really important to know, I think, for parents and for teachers and for students as well, so that if you're a student, you can know this too. They likened it to a marathon race, right? If at the start of a marathon, one person who starts at the very front of the group, if they finish first, and the person who started at the very back of the group, they finish last, well, the person in the front started first, and the person in the back started last, so that doesn't tell us anything about their pace, right? They finished in the same amount of time, but they got started at a different spot. This is interesting to know. So the conclusion is scientists through this study found out, according to this research, that nobody learns faster than anybody else. It's kind of cool. And it's completely counterintuitive to everything that we learned before. So the next time that you say to someone, oh, I'm a quick study, okay, that might be true, but it doesn't mean that anybody else is going to learn any slower than you are. That is today's Me, Myself, and I. Will have another break, and when we come back, we'll get into and we'll check out our theme for this week on Perfect Playlist. Here's Jordy, Story of a Boy.
This is the story of a boy.
That was Jordy with Story of a Boy, and now it's time for Perfect Playlist. Do you need the perfect song for the perfect situation? Well, we have you covered through Perfect Playlist. Because we were talking about school and education and learning today, maybe a little less about school, but definitely more about learning and education, the theme for this week's Perfect Playlist will be school life. School is a very polarizing experience. Some love it, some really don't love it. But however, regardless of where you fit on that spectrum, it's all something that we have to go through, or hopefully we have that privilege to go through, and we all have our own take and our own experiences as well. We'll start today with Alice Cooper and the track School's Out. It was released in the summer of 1972, and it feels like it was yesterday to some people, I assume. School's Out was released from the album of the same name, and the single was really popular. It went to number 7 in the U.S. and all the way to the top spot in the U.K. It recorded more than 1 million in sales in America alone, achieving platinum status. School's Out was to be one of Alice Cooper's last studio albums as a part of a band before he embarked on his solo career. After that, we'll hear a tune from the Boomtown Rats called I Don't Like Mondays. The Boomtown Rats, if you're not familiar with them, they were a punk and new wave band from Ireland that formed in the 1970s. I Don't Like Mondays was released in 1979, and it was taken from the album The Fine Art of Surfacing. The single reached a not-so-great number 73 in the U.S. charts and went to number 1 in the U.K. The poor result in America was not really a big surprise, though, given the lack of promotion and the lack of exposure for the group. The album saw similar lackluster figures. It couldn't even break the top 100 in America, but it did make it to number 7 in the UK. So here we go with our first of the 2 tracks for the theme School Life in this week's Perfect Playlist. Alice Cooper, School's Out, and then the Boomtown Rats, I Don't Like Mondays. Last week's theme was songs to wake up to. How about setting that as your Monday morning alarm clock? I don't like Mondays. That's a good song to wake up to. But it's also a good song for our school theme as well. That was from the Boomtown Rats, and before that, Alice Cooper's School's Out. Nearly out of time with the show for today, but I was just looking up other super smart young people during those songs. Have you ever heard this name before? Suborno Isaac Bari, a modern-day Einstein, they call him, who was born in Bangladesh. He is an American citizen, and he was six years old when he received recognition as a scientist by Harvard University. He received the Global Child Prodigy Award in 2020 when he was, I don't know how old he was when he received that award, but the story says that he was nominated for a Nobel Prize as well. Goodness me. Apparently, he has his own YouTube channel where he encourages us to be creative and to work hard and flourish in our studies. And he's a professor, too. Unbelievable. 6 years old. Well, he was 6 years old when he got that recognition from Harvard. But when he was 9 years old, he became a professor. How are you going to be a professor at 9 years old? I mean, it's not about being, no, it is about being smart enough to teach the material, but I mean, the adults in the class just must be such a weird feeling overall. And, you know, going back to what we were talking about, this study results where scientists found that some students don't learn faster than other students. Well, that might be true, and I guess that is true. But it's also true that there are just some people out there who are completely and utterly different, and their brains are wired in a different way. A 9-year-old professor, Suborno Isaac Bari. Never heard that young before. Pretty impressive, huh? That story is from, if you want to look it up, it's from a website called nyukani.co.za from South Africa, I guess. All right, that's going to do it for the program. Any final messages to check out? Hannah says, talking about something, learning. I haven't really learned anything recently, but one day I want to learn to cook healthier meals and hopefully end up enjoying cooking, LOL. Yeah, cooking doesn't come easy for a lot of people, the enjoyment side of things, that's for sure. Anyway, thanks for the message, Hannah. That'll do it for Steve Hatherly Reboot for this afternoon. Thank you very much for hanging out with me over the last couple of hours. I hope you enjoyed the program today. Thank you to Casey, as always, for his Need to Know segment, for his Under the Radar news stories. Thank you to you, as always, as well, for your listenership and your participation. I've been your host, Steve Hatherly, and today we'll wrap it up with Def Cab for Cutie, An Arrow in the Wall. Enjoy that. Have a great day today, and we'll reboot again tomorrow.